Hello, everyone, and welcome to SEO and GEO LLM visibility news for week 29. So that was last week. I know there wasn't a video last week again, but I had a little prolonged weekend vacation. So yeah. Anyway, back on track, and actually, not much has happened. So we can kind of go through all the things I've found and talk about them. A few interesting things. So let's just dive right in here. And the first thing is Google AI overviews can now generate AI images in the response. Now, Rusty Brick here said it's not good, can't be good for publishers. It's the whole plagiarizing thing, taking our content. And you could say, well, in this case, you're not taking our images. At least you're just generating new ones. Um, I'd be very interested to see all the mistakes and errors and mishaps from this. But overall, the question people might be wondering is, are we going away from people visiting web pages and just getting that answer? I don't think so, but I don't think this is a step in the right direction. I think you should be using the images we choose, um, or at least you can generate an image, but just be better at making AI overviews summarizing results, and then so you still get people clicking onto websites. Here's a really interesting article guide on how Google might understand unique content. And again, it kind of ties into some other stuff later on, but there's yeah, first of all, what is unique content and how does Google even understand it are two very important questions. And yeah, just a really, really good, I like the signals like original content score and content effort. I like the effort part. But anyway, have a look at this. It's very interesting, especially if you're into white hat long term, SEO and not trying to just game the system quickly. Bing is now an official result source in ChatGPT, and this was discovered, I guess, through the API response. It looks like that. You can see here Bing. So again, we have proof that ChatGPT, at least in the past, have been using Google, sourcing Google products, e-commerce snippets, and just using Google in general. We had proof of that. Now, this being an official source doesn't mean they've made a relation, like a deal with Bing, whatever it is. But overall, it's a good time to actually, if you don't have this, go into your Bing Webmaster Tool, set it up. I did it for my new job where I work, and it was very interesting to see how much traffic Bing was providing. I was very surprised, and they have a better AI generative report. Search Console just shows you impressions. Again, more on that in a second, but overall, very good reason to start going into Bing. This is something, the OKF, Open Knowledge Format, something Google came out with. And I guess, let's see here, I guess Gianluca Fiorelli, I have to read his name every time, lovely name, has a really good guide on this. And again, I have set myself a task to actually try and read through this because I want to see exactly what it is, if we should be setting it up. But overall, it's a way to structure your website, your content, everything for the agentic web, right? Big words, but getting early on board of this might be a good thing, or at least start thinking about it. Not let's prioritize. Very good guide though, so have a read of that. By the way, in the YouTube video description, you'll have links, intro, text, description, everything shareable, or just for yourself for notes, whatever you want. So go ahead and read this. E-commerce news here from SERP. What's his name again? Let me see here. Brody Clark. Yes, that's the guy. Yes. But yeah, he's talking about products in AI overviews, et cetera, et cetera. So what he's saying, and this is how it ties into, is Google Merchant Center is the only product right now in the Google ecospace to give you query data for AI overviews in AI mode. Again, they want you to spend money, so that might be why they're doing it there first. But if you're an e-commerce setup and you have Google Merchant Center, well, then maybe it's time to go in there and see the query data. Maybe you can get some insights out of that. So very interesting, good spot. As well, Mary Haynes talk about crawled, currently not indexed. I feel like every year we just keep having articles around this. Those crawled, currently not indexed, the reasons can change. So Google just set this up as a status, but the reasons for that can change depending on how Google evolves. And I think she's really narrowed it down really well. But again, the two reasons: rare technical issues, but far more often perceived low quality commodity content. Something that was mentioned, I think, by Lily and Marie as well, in some slides I've seen. So again, this whole commodity content. So we want to make content unique. And if you're talking about a topic, writing about a topic that no one else has covered, I guess you are the most unique content on that subject. So you can keep the quality bar low. The more competitive you get into space, the more you have to kind of stand out with your content. So yeah, I guess it depends on situations, but I completely agree with her. But it's really interesting, especially for the rare technical issues. Have a read. Thank you, Marie. And now let's move on. So apparently, ChatGPT is now showing a lot more ads, which is very interesting. Multiple ads. And again, I want to, yeah, Serpilance, by the way, cool browser if you are an SEO. But what's interesting here is how that affects usage. And again, I think if you're curious about this, go in, create some sort of like free or basic. I think it's only free that gets the ads, right? Because if you pay, you shouldn't get ads. So create a free account and start messing around with prompts within your niche. If you see ads come up and your competitors are in that space, maybe it's worth putting yourself there and competing. That's my kind of how I would go about it. How do LLMs secretly change? So this is a really interesting long article on LinkedIn from Pulse around how. So again, Peak AI, great. Peak, by the way, great for prompt tracking. We use it; they're great, these guys. But some interesting data on the Fanout queries and how they're changing over time. And I guess you could say by looking at the Fanout queries, so this queries that ChatGPT is making after a prompt to find anything and kind of combine the information is what's going to that's where you get the sources from. So you could start targeting those keywords technically because it's being run in Bing, as we mentioned, or maybe Google as well, or both. So you could create a strategy based on that. But the problem is they can also change very fast. So we recently talked about how ChatGPT started to do a lot more brand query searches. So it'll do specific brand and then search there, or site search. So it has an internal mechanism for figuring out what brands are trustworthy and then searching through those brands. And that's really interesting. And it's a change. And so it can change really quickly, which is why looking at fan out queries for your prompts is important. And I know PKI actually showed you that they have a specific overview of that. So that's great. But yeah, have a read of this. It's a long article. Good stuff from Peak. And then finally, Google explains SEO connection of site quality to non-indexed pages. And we're doing a callback to Mary Haynes stuff with the non-indexed, again, crawled, currently not indexed. But Google has a version 2. And again, Google, I take everything with a grain of salt from Google. I think they're very PR trained. They will just say enough. They will lie if they have to. We know that. They will tell us something and then let SEOs do it, and then they can use that data to improve the algorithm. For example, I have a crazy, theory, and let me put on the good old what's it called? No, no, I'm thinking in French, complot. Anyway, my theory is that Google had all these FAQ snippets so that people would create a lot of FAQ answers and then they could use that to train models or something and then just remove it after. Like, that's what I would do if I was sitting at the other side of the fence. So anyway, that was just a theory. Don't quote me on that. But that was the news for week 29, was last week. Like, subscribes. I post every Monday or Tuesday these kind of videos. Short summaries so you can listen to them or get all the links and read further in the video description. So have a lovely day, and I will see all you lovely SEOs next week.